Meet me to invite to join us our guest in the studio to review these stories together. He is a social, political, and economics analyst. I'm talking about none other than the ever-mercurial Dr. Aliyu Ilias. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And a happy new month as well. It's the first time we're seeing this month.
Right, correct.
Well, let's get straight into the conversations this morning. It used to be a thing back in the early 80s, early 90s, but in the millennium, we saw a disappearance of toll gates across the country.
Right.
This morning, we're told that 9 expressways across the country, across the 6 geopolitical zones, will have a reintroduction of toll gates, starting with the Abuja-Makurdi highway. We're told that reasons for this is to be able to generate revenue for their maintenance and also to repay the loans taken from the China Exim Bank. How do you judge this direction by the federal government for improved road accessibility across Nigeria?
Right. I think first and foremost, we have suffered what we call policy somersault over time. So I think maybe, and that's why we must be careful in our decisions as every government comes on. You recall we have a very good toll gate system. I recall one of my uncle worked in toll gates. Even when we are much younger, and we appreciate that because when you get there, there's a convergence of different vehicles. You slow down, and it helps security. But until President Olusegun Obasanjo came and said, no, there shouldn't be toll gates anymore. So for me, I think it's a policy somersault because they are going to pay another money, go out through another process to install those toll gates. Is it a good one or bad? I will agree it's a good one because if you look at our roads, our infrastructure decay, it's very, very much. So anything that will help us to actually continuously maintaining the road, it's a good one. And if you go to Makurdi road highway, you see the beautiful one that there's need to actually continue to maintain. So if toll gate is actually coming and it's aimed because and the way they're actually saying that it's because of China loan, I don't agree with that. I say by the time you completed the loan, you remove the toll gate.
Payment of the toll gate.
By the time you pay the toll gate loan, repay it. I say you are going to remove the toll gate. That's not correct. So let's just agree that toll gate is coming back. It has its own advantage if it does not suffer corruption. Because I recall one of the reasons for President Olusegun Obasanjo then was that toll gate is a conduit pipe for corruption, and they said that's why it should remove. So if it is not the conduit pipe for corruption, I think coming back of toll gate will bring about security because there is no way, if you look at those areas, it will bring business to that area and there will be more function there to bring security, it will bring more money, and to also ensure the fixing of the road. So it's a good one if it comes with a clean hand, as it were.
Now let's talk about the issue of the ticket prices for the various vehicles. We're told that salon car owners who ply that route will need to pay 500 naira. Then for articulated trucks, they'll need to pay 1,600 naira. As compared to what was obtainable back in the days, it used to be 50 to 100 naira. Is this sum of money not a little bit on the high side for especially those who are not commercial vehicles?
Well, if you look at the economy now, you will see it's on high side. I passed through we have Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja,
yes, and
I saw they are fixing the airport. I passed freely, to the airport. I was telling the person that I can't remember,
without paying.
Without paying, you didn't pay. Now say I should look that they're actually fixing the toll point. So hopefully by the time they also fix the toll point finish, they will also increase the price. For me, 500 naira is not too much if I'm going to ply a good, safe and secured road. I won't see it as a big because if you look at the economy, will you say 100 naira or 200 naira? It does not have value anymore. So that's about 500. If we have all those enabling environment.
You know why I asked is because Nigerians have been quite critical about prices now, especially with the hike in certain tariffs and whatnot. So overarchingly, does this not rub off on the purchasing power parity and the minimum wage of something?
Well, it will transfer definitely to the consumers because if you see articulate vehicle should pay 1,600 and it's paying in 5 places, before you get to where it's going to transfer the cost. And if you also say commercial vehicles should pay, they will transfer it to the consumers. We have agreed that this government believe in raking in more money. But I'm actually trying to say that if we have good road and I'm going to pay, okay, let me give you a good example. I am going to Kaduna from Abuja, and I'm going to apply a very good road, and I say I should pay 500 naira for toll gate, I will not mind, because the suffering that the car will experience, the damage will be more than 500 on the bad road. So on that basis, I'm saying that it's better I pay that toll and have a good road, and secured and good road.
Well, quite interestingly, it's a development we'd also like to get your opinions on. Across 9 major highways spread across the 6 geopolitical zones, there is the reintroduction of toll gates. They say many Gen Zs might not be able to relate, but it's a system much like you find at the airports, but then on the highways, to generate revenue, which is supposed to be used for the maintenance of those road projects. And in the words of Dr. Aliyu Ilias, he says he doesn't mind paying so long as the infrastructure would be durable. I don't know about you. Let us know your thoughts as well as you share them on our online social media platforms. We'll be moving on to our next issue in the news, and following the conclusion of the Federal Executive Council meeting where several issues were discussed quite prominently across the pages of 2 newspapers this morning, is news that 758 billion naira would be issued in bonds to clear a backlog of pensions owed some senior citizens in Nigeria. I know affected amongst this is some of the men who served gallantly in the army. And beyond that, there's also supposed to be 30 million euros concessional loans to fund student housing projects across the country. What do you make of this decision off the back of the FEC meeting?
Right. First and foremost, to anything that we embark on to actually alleviate the suffering of citizens, I think it's well deserved, because it's saddening that you serve 35 years or 30 years and you are home, you are not getting your pension as and when due. So I think it's a good one on the side of federal government, but they are going to get bond. It's another question. So that simply means that they have to source for the money from other places. So that's the one I'm actually worrying about. But to solve the problem of arrears that we are owing, I don't think there's anything too much to do. We are also getting old, and someday we'll get to that.
Well, we
retire. So do we want to also face with this? In fact, sometimes I wonder the type of civil servant we have. In as much as you know that you are going to get to that level as well, why not do everything possible to pay these people ahead as and when due? You don't leave them to suffer, because most people are dying because they cannot even survive them. Because even look at the salary now. As of now, you hardly can use this salary to build a house as a civil servant. As of now, you only struggle to send your children to school. So by the end of the day, there is no job for your children. You don't have a house that you have built, and you don't also get the stipend, which you say they're supposed to use to actually survive upkeep monthly. So
this brings into question
the
credibility of the pension and housing scheme as provided for. Deductions are made monthly from the take home of 7 individuals, either the federal civil service or even the state civil service. But upon retirement, a lot of persons do not even access these funds for one, or even live in those houses.
It's even sad, because if you look at the pension, the way it is wired, some of those organizations will not even remit. They will be collecting from the staff. There is a way they are not remitting their own part, right? And it's a big problem. Even private sector also perpetuates such a thing, which we must actually find a way to deal with. Then in terms of the housing for students, that simply means building hostel, if I'm not mistaken, for students. I think that is quite a good one. You recall that schools are now becoming much more commercialized, unlike before. Because if you look at the school fees, I recall, is it in Abuja or which school, they have increased their school fee that people cannot even afford. Remember, there is also a loan. My fear is that, is it because government is providing loan and such housing scheme that made the school fee or the tuition fee to actually skyrocketed to where it is? I think it's a bad one, because by the time you are created, you won't know the difference between private school and actually public school. Remember, the more affordable, the more easier it is to access university education or polytechnic education, the more we have people that are more educated to that level. So building school as hostel for schools, I think it's a good one. We actually applaud that. It will bring, because the major problem sometimes is not even the tuition fee. You recall, the sundry costs of accommodation and other things that brings about problem when we are in school.
Another decision off the back of the FEC meeting was 80 billion naira that's been approved for the Alao Dam. We saw the damage last year.
Right.
It was attributed to it. There were some reports denying it, but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved 80 billion naira to attend to the Alao Dam in Borno State. What do you make of that decision?
I think I have issue with being not proactive and being reactive. It's a serious issue that we must start. You know, I never got to hear that somebody is being questioned about what happened at Alao Dam. People are there to actually monitor it every day, every time. People are there to actually inform federal government on the status of it. People actually, you know, this thing happened 20 years ago. People also are there that actually, you know, collected the money to actually fix it and do what have you. What actually happened? There must be question about it. Not only approving money. Approving money is good because, you know, it has bring about a lot of damages, and we see reason that we must find a way to actually solve that problem in future. However, there's need for that. So for they bring such bill, I think it's a good one, but it must be judiciously used so that next 20 years won't suffer the same fate.
Well, still stemming back off the back of some approvals by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the next issue in the news is an exchange of words and a difference in opinion between Governor Uba SAN and the former governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai. Now, the former governor El-Rufai is accusing Governor Uba SAN of being somewhat biased in his objective opinions of how well the current government is doing under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, saying that owing to certain approvals that his state is benefiting from, he might see reasons why Governor Uba SAN is speaking so glowingly about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu despite the challenges Nigerians are facing owing to some policy decisions of the president. I don't know if you've been following that exchange of words.
Yes, right. I think on online, on X, we've seen a lot of them, but I think it is expected that Uba SAN should continue to support his president, which is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. They are in the same party and they have the same objective. I wonder why former Governor El-Rufai wants Uba SAN to go against the president. Even he, when he was, he has a principle of saying some things, but even he at that time was a stooge under President Muhammadu Buhari, which is actually expected. They are in the same party, actually work together. I think the El-Rufai challenge was the inability to actually secure a position in the federal executive. But for me, I think that is not securing that position is a negative externalities for APC. And you know there's some enemy that you have to have within so that it will not cause a problem, and that's what is actually happening. You recall that there was a frenzy when actually some opposition party came to greet him, that he has to clarify that he's not leaving the party. But I think is an enemy you must have within. That you have it outside your cabinet is a negative externalities. I think, and that's what is actually happening. You also recall that he said that Uba SAN collected some money, that what happened is not justified to what he actually collected, which I actually want to say that at this point, if El-Rufai start now to be questioning Uba SAN, remember El-Rufai is still in court, whereby they said some of his commissioners are still in court alongside him, that they mismanage money, and he is believing that it was Uba SAN who gave out such opportunity for such questioning. So I think there's a serious issue between them that I think is going to shape or reshape the political landscape of politics in Kaduna. Because going forward, remember that he will not want to tolerate. And Governor El-Rufai then singularly choose Uba SAN, I should say, to become the governor. But becoming governor, he now saw that El-Rufai has actually collected a lot of loans that he is going to suffer. But I think once you become governor, you have to become governor with the liability of assuming that office. So I think for me, what Uba SAN is actually doing is uncalled for.
Now let's talk about this alleged perceived grievance of failing to secure a position in the federal government. He was nominated. His nomination was sent to the National Assembly.
Right.
It was stood down over issues as it concerns his alleged participation in issues that fueled inter-religious crisis in Kaduna State. Some insecurity issues and matters that up until now were said to be under probe, but have not still seen the light of day. What does this do for the person of El-Rufai in terms of future ambitions in whatever government?
I think it's quite political because there was no any evidence and there was no any report to that effect. So I think the government of the day do not want him to participate. You recall even at the National Assembly when they questioned him, there was a kind of recess. There has to the president have to move down Villa. There's a lot of things that happen at that period. So I think there's a political group who do not want him to actually assume that office. Perhaps they may think he'll be too strong in that cabinet because he's a minister 22 years ago, according to him, and he has the experience. So for me, I think it's quite political. That is not a reason because there is no evidence that he actually that though during his time he was able to do Muslim.
And they said some of the comments he made, rhetorics he made.
Right. Let him be tried. Let us have evidence that what you say it's wrong and we have been convicted for it or what have you. Not that we use a political hammer to do that. He's still in their party, and when he was campaigning for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, did they see that? In fact, he was the first person who came out and said, "Governor should go to what? President should go to what? South to the south," and he stood by him. I recall even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the point when they were talking said, "Thank you to him that you actually make it possible. Don't leave us, come and work for me." So why would you now say? So for me, I even believe the president is aware that they will not give him the minister.
Well, quite a political calculation in terms of what Kaduna will be doing in 2027.
Right.
Now that we have people within a party also at loggerheads.
It also will affect even President Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency. People don't know. So imagine we have Atiku. We have El-Rufai supporting Peter Obi. I don't know how you see it. I'm telling their people that, well, this is another alternative. I think, and Kwankwaso also coming together, supporting people like, you see that it's a political alignment that will be dangerous for APC.
Is this the mega party that most people are pretending?
It may not even be mega party. You may not actually join the party to support a movement. It's possible. We have seen people who support other political, other party presidential candidates. Even within, we could also see what trajectory that Minister of FCT, Yesom Wike, is also painting.
What he played in 2022.
What he's also painting now, he's still saying he's a PDP member, but working for APC. So everything can happen in politics, and politics is always sweet when we have challenges. So it makes it much more sweeter.
Well, when it comes to politics and decisions that shape the opinions of individuals, many leave it for the polls to speak. But when it comes to the socio-economic politics that determines the price and how it affects the lives of Nigerians, a lot of persons want to be involved. Now, there's an on-raging price war when it comes to petrol in the country. And Dangote Refinery a couple of days ago did announce a reduction in its ex-depot price. Before that, 2 weeks ago, there was news that marketers went outside the country to source more products. They imported PMS. Now, despite the Dangote MRS deal that sees cheaper price, there's still this issue of marketers deciding where they want their fuel from and how they want to go about it. Let's get your opinion on this issue as well.
As a liberalist, I think what is happening is a good one for consumers, because by the time they have differences, they actually reduce the cost and it benefits us. For me, I'm of the opinion that there should be importation of PMS. While we have importation, Dangote produces, NNPLC also produces. It brings expected competition. America has over 132 refinery and they still import. Saudi have over 4 refinery, they still import. Why? Because recall, petroleum product is a global product, and the competition will only come when there is those alternatives. So I think for me, I still want the marketers to continue to import. It will make Dangote to actually be conscious and reduce the price as it just did now.
Now there's also a global drop in the price of this product at a time when the Naira is said to be appreciating. But does it somewhat worry you that the time in which it takes to reflect at the pump price is not as immediate as we're seeing the prices drop globally and the Naira appreciate?
But that's how it should be. That's why it is called economy. Because you must have bought some product. You must have import some product and they are on their way before there's a global change. So ideally, that people in Nigeria take advantage of everything. Should have sell what you have, it is when you purchase the new one that you now have to reflect the price. If you have a system that is actually working, and that should be done by NMDPR, it's very, very important we look into that. For me, I think that competition is good. Let us not stop importation. Even though we have sufficient products within, let us go and import to bring competition.
Now, we're told that the importation is worth over 243 billion naira. That's an 80% increase. But Dangote had earlier taken the NNPCL and the NMDPR to court in a suit which is seeking for over 100 billion naira in compensation, citing some sections of the PIA that says, except there is a shortfall, that they shouldn't be issuing licenses for importation to marketers.
I have seen some marketers who told me confidently that they prefer buying from Dangote because of the quality, because of this, which is a good one for him. So if you can make your own special, people will actually buy from you. At the point, even we that are the consumers will say any station that does not have, we will not go there. So for me, I don't see why he actually need to go to court. This is a competition. He should also learn how to work within competition. You recall that even in cement, he has succeeded and been the leader in that sector and is controlling the price. If he is allowed to control the price in the PMS also, I'm afraid it might also go higher. So I think there could be continuous importation. Maybe we can now bring it to percentage, maybe 20% of what we need or 30%, while he will be bringing 50%, while NPC could be doing 20% if it's possible. That would have been fine. So, and that will bring competition. It will give him room. Dangote is exporting, right? He's also exporting. So, he should always look at how it can actually balance and make his money. So, for me, I think there's need for us to continue importation.
Now, in terms of what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said, you recall when he had his media chat at his Bodilon residence in Lagos at the start of the year, he was asked this question of how best he feels the market should operate, should there be price control or not, and the president says he believes in a free market system.
Right.
Now, it's coming at a time when Dangote is also citing some loans that he needs to repay. You had cited the monopoly in the cement market. Are there some strategic measures you feel the NNPCL would be taking at this measure to ensure that there's no monopoly when it comes to PMS?
Right. You recall before, by the time Dangote was coming up, he said he cannot determine the price unless he engaged the NNPCL. I think that deal broke down. That was what we are seeing or what we actually are seeing. So for me, and I agree with Mr. President, if you allow few people to control the market, it will become they will become monopoly of sorts, and they will be doing what they actually wanted for us. We will not be able to actually question them. But if there is importation, you could see importation is giving him problem that he even had to go to court. That simply means that he knew that he cannot do profit margin. That will be too much for importation. And I can tell you, he's doing economic of scale. You cannot repay your loan in 1 year or 2 years. It will also definitely take time. And those people that actually imported actually they even have deal for 4 or 5 years agreement. So they also need to buy and also balance up. So I think it's a good one, and I'm sure that NNPC also is also important, which is also a good one. So for me, let's be liberalized. Let there be free market. Let there be competition. Just let me give you an example. Imagine if there is room to import cement. Do you think cement will be as expensive as this? Let's look at I think cement should be around 9,000 something or 10,000 per bag. So if there is importation, do you think it will be up to this level? So sometimes when you import, you use import to control the price and to get the best of the price in the market.
Now, still talking price, I know we make a case for importing refined fuel, but when it comes to importing crude, there's a current crude price instability too that many of your colleagues are saying would affect our projected revenue of 36.35 million.
Yes.
In terms of this challenge with having crude here, and most times you speak about it, people talk about oil theft in the Niger Delta region being a significant impeding factor. Is that enough reason as to why crude import continues, and how would this crude price instability affect our revenue projections?
Well, I think crude importation will continue, because I recall that when Dangote was having an agreement with Naira swap, what have you, with NNPC,
Naira for crude deal.
Naira for crude deal, NNPC was actually ready to supply, but he said that they cannot supply him completely, because he need maybe 6 supply in a year. I don't think NNPC can do more than 3, so you need to source outside for it. That's one. Then number 2, recall that we are under OPEC. Now under OPEC, there is a quota that is given to each country. Remember, we are also supplying Shell and other people also. I mean, we are supplying other country crude oil too. So if you look at the OPEC quota, we may not be able to do more than maybe 2.2 million barrel per day. And for us to satisfy the what do we call it, the refinery in Nigeria, both Dangote and other modular refinery, we may be needing maybe 3 million, per day. So if there is a shortfall like that, there is room for Dangote to continue to import from wherever I want to import. I'm sure it's also important. So it's not bad. And then in terms of revenue that we are getting, I think we cannot do beyond what OPEC actually will give us. And there is a sign that this year we may not even have opportunity to do more, because recall that America has their own oil and they are not part of OPEC, and their decision mostly affects the decision of OPEC. So we need to look at that. So for me, I think there can be importation. Meanwhile, there's other way we can actually get our revenue, as it were. It may not be at where we want, but we can still move, because with the style of this present government and the new tax reform, I think we can get much more revenue, so as to have more budget. Because I'm not a fan of a budget of this small mega sum. We should be doing 100 trillion to galvanize development in Nigeria.
But our budget is already in deficit of over 13 trillion. And when we look at our projections for the barrels per day of output, we want to sustain it, where we're even asking inflation to be. That's true. I haven't gotten your opinion on this. Bringing inflation down from where it is at over 34% to 15% in a calendar year, is it achievable?
It's how do I call it? It is fallen ambition. We are over ambitious. It's not just possible. You recall that 2023, that's how we said we'll bring it down to 21%. Are we able to do that? Instead of 21% of 2024, it's moved to what, 34%. I think government is over ambitious. It's good, but I don't see it working. At most, we can get 25 to 30. We cannot even come to 21.
Another target that has also been pegged at quite an ambitious level is 2.5 million barrels per day. Whereas it was at 1.8 for our last budget cycle, the CDS yesterday also was advocating for a non-kinetic approach in ensuring we meet that target. I saw the meetings with the NSA and CSOs and whatnot. Is that a more realistic target?
Well, the fact is that if you go with a non-kinetic, that will part of the non-kinetic approach has been too. You see the Ogoni people's meeting with the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We also see that yesterday there was an approval of Environment University by Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Ogoni land. I think that's part of the non-kinetic approach, and that will actually galvanize, will make those people feel concerned that though there's need for us to make sure we ramp up production more. But can they get to 2.5? I think it is possible, because with what will happen, we recall that also we have Niger Delta people securing the what have you. Then I think on the side of
like
Tompolo, and on the side of Mili Kiari, I think they are also doing well. So I see it possible, because I'm also, we have internal supplier now that we need to supply. We have obligation to actually meet up with, and I don't know if our forward contract has also elapsed. So there's reason why we need to do more to actually have more. I think it's possible if we put all the non-kinetic and kinetic approach to it.
Well said by Dr. Aliyu Ilias. Bringing us to our next issue in the news, where the Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Security, Aliyu Abdullahi, stated that certain states in Nigeria who meet criteria would obtain $30 million loan to improve rural access and to serve as a boost for agriculture, coming at a time when we continue to discuss a rising food insecurity and food inflation at well over 40.1%. Now, I don't know, the criteria has not been broken down, but we talk about throwing money at the problem. We had the rice value chain. We had some loans under the FDB.
Yes, anchor borrower.
Right. Is this any different?
Some of them are political anchor borrower, but no matter what, I think the Buhari government tried in rice production. At a point, we are sufficient in doing that. So we hope the Tinubu government will also do more on mining as they are embarked upon. But coming back to the field of agriculture, you recall that as of July 2023, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu declared state of emergency on food security. Some of us are saying what you are doing, what he said, could not materialize even up till now, because he forgot that states, the land belongs to states. Maybe he has realized that. That's why he's thinking now that you need to support those states, not pronouncement only. So if the money will work, that's the question. So a state like Niger, and I'm happy that they said states that are complying with it. So that's a soothing part of it. But the fact that state like Niger has embarked on, he even call himself farmers governor, and he has embarked on securing tractors, and he actually working, making sure people are encouraged to go back to farm. I think it's a good one, because if you look at our last outing, it was said that service sector contribute more to the economy, and that's a sad one for a country like Nigeria. We should have agriculture taking the lead, and we have manufacturing sector following before we now look at service sector. So I think agricultural sector should be contributed, because that's our mainstay. And I can tell you about over 60% of Nigerians are still doing agriculture, and that's our main. But if you go to other countries, we don't have more than 5-10%, and they can feed the nation and actually export. And let's look at the example of a state like a country like Kenya, Ethiopia. What's their business? They have airline and agriculture, and they have what we call cargo plane that will always come in the morning, pack all those fresh, produce, take it to America, Canada. We don't have such in Nigeria. Go to Sokoto, go to all those Kebbi, you see that most things that we need in the urban center, are rotten away, simply because common feeder roads are not there. They don't have access to actually take it to the market. And on the face of GMO, that's a problem. So where people are looking at alternative, so we must do more to actually have a robust agricultural sector, and not only agricultural sector, we must make sure that the value chain, like rightly mentioned, are being tapped. And how do we tap the value chain? Is to make sure that we have cargo airports. I've not seen any cargo airports in Nigeria that will take farm produce in the morning, take it to a country like America, take it every morning like that, because people will go to market, bring it. Because if you don't have those markets available, those things will rotten, and they will not have money to go back to actually farm.
Now you had mentioned it earlier, and more experts are lending their voice to it. 19 months down the line since the president's declaration of a state of emergency on food security, do you feel that it's because of the lack of addition in the value chain in terms of the levels at which we farm, more or less subsistence farming, commercial farming? Before I knew, at least for the likes of rubber, we're exporting rubber from Nigeria actively.
Correct.
We're exporting palm at some point. The granite pyramids have disappeared from Kano. I don't know what it would take. Is it an investment on the part of the government in terms of these provisions for storage? President Bola Ahmed Tinubu talked about silos when he came into power, whilst he made that declaration. I'm not so sure. Apart from the seedlings and fertilizers handed to farmer, I'm not sure there's an investment at that level.
Well, the only thing I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done in the agricultural sector is to create the livestock ministry. So, but for me, I think you need to really work with the governors, because the land belongs to the governors. When the governors know that they will not get, now that some governors know that they will not get some loans because they are not actually tilting towards the objective of Mr. President in terms of agriculture, I think that will help. But President must match his words with what action, because if there's no action on those things, it will not materialize. If you declare state of emergency on food and 19 months, and that means we have 2 calendar agriculture year, and there's no products to actually and you recall that even whenever the produce actually come out, our inflation always comes on. That means there's a direct correlation between the farm produce and what is actually happening, because you agree with me that major push for this inflation is food. If you look at it, food inflation is over 40% compared to average of 34% of inflation. That simply means that if we can do more on our agriculture sector, it will make our economy to be robust, and we'll have a lot of things. Even balance of trade, balance of payment will be achieved if you can actually have that. So I think government should look more in that direction.
Now this brings us to another major prediction affecting states where there are high agricultural activity. The coastal plains, the likes of Plateau, the FCT, parts of Nasarawa yesterday, following the NIMET prediction of early rainfall, increased temperatures, and states that are expected to find mid-year flooding. It's been said to affect a lot of our production, particularly for those who do rice farming in the country. I don't know.
I was in Lagos on Friday, Saturday. So on Friday when I arrived at the airport, I was wondering, what happened at this airport? So I tried to. They said it was rain, and on the morning of that Saturday, it was heavy rain. I have to go inside before I can find my way out. I think it's a good one that we have NIMET bringing up such a prediction on time. It will help the farmers to actually plan themselves very, very well. But we must also help with much more seedling information, because there must be much more research. I don't know if it's this place that I mentioned, that a place like Benue that we said is food basket of the nation. I was in a discourse somewhere outside Nigeria, and the discussion was that we are only calling it food basket. It's not a reality. And I asked further that why. They said if you go to Benue and you pick an orange, and you go to the next environment there, you pick an orange, and the taste is always different. And when you are selling something in a large scale, average Westerners want to have the same taste, so that when they're even using it to do juice, there won't be, So and you recall that Malaysia came to Nigeria to pick palm. I can tell that if you go to Malaysia now, all the palm are not taller that tall, the same species, the same product. So until we come to realize that there's a science behind that, and I'm sure we have. In fact, we have University of Agriculture, I think in Makurdi. Yes. So I don't know why up to now the result of that is still not coming out. Because if the result is coming out, people will come from Western world and say, no, okay, all these local governments, this is what we are buying from you, since we believe that. So I think the government need to do more than by saying that this environment, you should have the same species and the same product that will come the same taste, so that people can actually buy from. Or if you still go to the eastern part, or even some part of it, you still see our palm tree very, very long, that people need to use something to
climb it.
Meanwhile, people that actually collect those seedlings from us have gone to do it whereby it can be accessible, it's the same taste and what have you. So until we change that orientation, and we have a lot of agricultural research institutes, I don't know what they are doing about it.
It's also coming at a time when a lot of people are farming dependent on the irrigation they get naturally from the rain. I think this is one thing that's also impeded our.
We must start constructing irrigation. I think which state actually did this? I passed through one of the states and I saw that there's a network of those irrigation pass through that even every farmers can actually navigate and get, until we look at, and that's what we expect President Tinubu to do while declaring state of emergency, so that we can have all-round farming season. You won't be it's only so period that can get this product. Once you have the availability of water, you can actually do farming throughout the season.
There's also another accompanying conversation on this subject, the issue of increased temperatures. A lot of persons, and this is on the health of individuals, a lot of persons I have had conversations with are complaining, you're experiencing the heat at night, it gets quite hot, I'm having to drink a lot of water these days, I don't know what's happening. Usually when this conversation on climate change comes up, people talk about the fact that Africa does not really contribute that much to climate change, but somehow it almost feels as though we're now dealing with the reality of climate change.
I think, and that's why when they go to COP, I always wonder what they are bringing home, because there is clear fact that climate change is now a serious issue. And you could see what happened in America, just sudden fire, and everywhere got California fire, everywhere got burned. It's simply, we may say we are not contributing to the emission, but the world is moving out of fossil fuel, they are moving to green energy, but how is it affecting our farming? And that's the science we need to look at. So if climate change is there, we should know that with climate change, such soil has been actually affected. This is how we should do it. And for human, I think we need to start adapting and looking at our weather very well. So, and I think it's go to meteorologists again to actually do more on this climate. And you recall, I tried to look at how many appointments that we have for climate change. We have SA, we have DG, a lot of things under climate change, but we have not seen considerable results, because we need to be sensitized as individuals, as farmers, as groups, so that we know the status of the climate change now, so that we can plan towards it and actually on. So I think government needs to do more orientation on the level of climate change in Nigeria now.
Now, the last issue on this subject before we move on is also our flood preparations. I know here in the FCT, one of the places we use as case study is the Trademore Estates. Each year it comes, the conversation is had, once the rain subsides, nobody talks about it again.
As at yesterday, I was in Trademore. Those buildings are still there, and there was no good solution. I think FCT minister needs to do more, because the argument is that they need to be compensated. They legally acquire the land. So I don't think it's anything bad for FCT to actually compensate them and say, okay, those people in the front, I think those are the people that is affected.
Just by the gate.
By the gate entrance. So let's just change your own environment goods, but there's still legal tussle. But I think this minister should do more before the rain actually commences. But I recall Nasarawa also experienced flooding. A lot of it actually happened. So I think the meteorologists need to do more, and there is need to create much more dam in some areas. So for me, I think there's need to create. I think we have maybe 8 dam. We need to create much more dam to absorb those water. This North Central, I think we need more dam, FCT to Nasarawa. So we should create those dams so that they can actually absorb those water. If not, we'll continue to experience such a thing. And when it comes, it also affects the economy, because most people that are farming, the water would have sweep away their produce, which is a serious thing. It's added to even last year, food crisis. And I think we need to do something. We need to be proactive, and that's my issue with government. They will be reactive. Look at what happened at Aliyu Dam. It is now that you're actually bringing about money, and we have seen signs before that this thing may actually collapse. I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we need to do more in terms of being proactive, not reactive at matters that concern the country.
Well, as we're coming to a close on our conversation, just to be reminded, yesterday was a commemoration of the World Cancer Day, and investments towards making cancer care affordable to Nigerians were reiterated. However, overarchingly, Nigeria's healthcare sector has been given a good rating. Now, whilst the rating, good in quotes, is not entirely the reflection of our true state of health in the country as a people, the federal government, the National Association of Resident Doctors, and chief medical directors of hospitals in Nigeria were earlier captured in a difference of opinion on our health rating. It's coming at a time when there's also been the suspension of foreign aids to Nigerians to combat different ailments. Particularly, the most spoken of is the US aids for HIV.
Right.
Yesterday as well, we heard that Nigeria has now increased funding in a way to shore up this deficit. But many were asking, did it have to come to the return of Donald Trump before we really find our ratings as to where we are as a country when it comes to our health? So we'll talk about these issues in bits, but let's start first and foremost with this suspension of foreign aid to help Nigeria combat HIV.
Well, the fact is that it's going to affect Nigeria so much, because especially non-governmental organizations in Nigeria who access those funds to actually carry out those things. So it's going to tell on our health, and there will be more pressure on the government and individuals. I can tell you, people, and it's even coming at a time where drugs are very, very expensive. Before you can go to market, you can go to pharmacy and get a paracetamol of 100 naira, 200 naira. That is no more. I can tell you, inhaler that is being sold at 1,200 is about 10,000 naira now. So it's coming at a time that we actually are having issue in terms of depreciation of naira. So I think it's going to affect Nigeria. But I think Trump, over time, it's for 4 years, he will see reason why he should also change his thoughts.
Policy on that.
Policy, because I recall that he has suspended tax. The increased tax on is it Canada and China. China. So for I think 30 days. So I think he has realized that there is need for much more, because China has also increased 15% on some of their produce, because if you give, you also collect in some instance. So I think he's trying to review, but I want to thank Trump, because it brings about some consciousness in global, because I saw the world going like this, and Trump is trying to bring the consciousness that this is how it should be. It's also bring consciousness to a country like Nigeria that we need to be self-sufficient. That's bring about what the rating they're actually talking about.
Now, one of the reasons why this suspension is said to be in effect is because of the mismanagement of certain funds that were supposed to come in as US aids. People talked about the fact that some of the CSOs involved were using the money for alleged terrorism financing and other issues that were not concerning HIV treatment. What does this do to the integrity of such organizations? Should we have them named and shamed? What way can we curtail them on the national level?
You know, I think federal government have a role to play. Sometimes when you discover such, you need to name and shame. You recall that Dubai government came and said they had some 6 people or 8 people financing terrorism, and everybody saying, government, why not declare the name of these people? Up till now, those names are not actually declared. So if people collect aid and they are not actually using it as for what it's supposed to be, I think they should be called to question, and because they give us bad name in the long run. If they are giving you aid, but I even find it difficult to believe that USAID will give you money and you not use it for their project. It's pretty difficult because they're going to monitor you. Because I remember I was in one of those organizations I don't want to mention, failed to just give reports. That was the one they have negative experience from USAID. I don't think that's the main reason for Trump anyway, but Trump is actually saying that it's American first. He needs money as well to take care of his people compared to giving out aid to people.
Now, another subject is the payment of medical staff. Now, Feba Balola made a statement. He said Nigerian doctors are not even as paid as well as cleaners in other countries. And that for a fact is when you check the equivalents in dollars. If you look at it in Naira, quite appreciable when you look at the salary of other Nigerian
doctors. But it does not have value.
But it doesn't have
value.
This statement has also said to have fueled the choice of medical practitioners who choose to practice outside the country as again practicing in Nigeria. Is it a time for awakening? How do we get ourselves back on track?
I don't even know if the doctors in Abuja have resumed back.
They were on a warning strike.
Okay, it was warning strike. But the fact is that if we continue like this, it will be pretty difficult for even our children to go ahead to even study those courses. Because it's becoming, you know, normal thing that you don't pay them well. And when you don't pay them well, but there was a announcement that they are building housing for medical doctors across Nigeria. And when I got to hear that, say that's a good one. We must start appreciating those people, especially because recall that our lawyers, you recall that there was a 300% increment in their salary.
Judicial workers by President Bola Tinubu.
We could also see people like Governor Wike building houses for them here and there when he was in Port Harcourt, when he came to Abuja. There is need for us to start paying our medical practitioners well. If not, they will continue to go. You can't stop them from actually traveling, because everybody wants a good life. Because if you are a medical doctor, you cannot get. And remember, when you're a medical doctor, you seem not to be able to do any other thing, because you cannot separate the medical doctor work from him. It is there to actually practice those things. I think we need to start catering well to the need of our medical doctors in Nigeria.
But overarchingly, how would you rate our healthcare? Is it good?
Right. If you say where you know, it depends on who is at the end of affair. For now, I think with this well-experienced minister is trying to do everything in his power to make sure that things work well. And when I got to hear that the nomenclature for minister is now Minister of Health and Social Welfare, I was thinking social welfare would have created much more health insurance for us, because you know, health is not what you plan for. So I think there is need for us to have access, people that are not government workers like me or you rather, we need to have, apart from normal HMO, there should be a way that will have that national insurance, because you cannot do anything abroad without such a health insurance or health facility insurance. So I think we need to go back to that. So we expect Ali Pate to do more, to prevail more. I think he has attract more budgetary allocation compared to before, and that's why I said our budget is too small to cater to a lot of things. Imagine the capital expenditure is only about 15%. So from that 15%, all Nigerians are going to benefit. You know, it's not like recurrent, that is only government workers. So your health, your education, your road, everything is still under that 15 trillion. That's quite small, as I said earlier.
Now they've taken commendable steps. Like last year, there was the declaration of free cesarean
session
for pregnant women. It's in the implementation.
Right. That we need to see it being implementable, because you recall that I said he's trying, but those things need to be seen, because you know, cesarean session. But as at yesterday, a friend of mine lost the wife, and I tried
to hear about that.
And I tried to ask what actually happened. Said she delivered through cesarean session. So before, like 10 minutes after, she gave up. The child is there, and I said, at this level in Nigeria, we're still experiencing maternal mortality. So, and that's another thing that we need to do more. we need to make sure that we avoid it. As the Western world has been able to even eradicate, you can't even hear so it is sad one that at this level, we still suffer such an experience.
Well, one final issue as we look to go into the new month is on the budget defense and the different MDAs asking for increases. You've said the health has been able to attract an increase. Beyond defense, what other sectors would you prefer an increase in their budgetary allocations?
Well, I think all sectors deserve more, but after health, I think education is also key, because the more we get educated, the more we have access to education, the more we actually have more. And if you agree with me, I think education even have much more MDs than other under the ministry than other. So I think there is need for it. Agriculture also need more. So I think there's no one that does not need more. But the only thing is that we must increase our revenue generation, like President Bola Ahmed is doing. We must also have more budget. If we have 100 trillion budget, imagine 10 trillion for education, 7 trillion for health sector. This is how it. But now we are even getting less than 1 trillion for those sector, and they need to work with it. So we need to increase our budget.
Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that he's taking a strategic step with signing the bills for development commissions across the 6 geopolitical zones. And one of the key metrics in these development commissions is to ensure that areas where the budget fails to cater, it will be the roles of these development commissions to check some of the lapses in terms of what the true needs assessments are for the geopolitical zones.
Well, for me, I don't agree with creation of a geopolitical zone. I think it's a waste of resources, waste of time, and a precursor for separation.
Do you think it's more like a political solution to this cry for marginalization?
Well, I don't agree with it. In as much as we have states, states and FCT, directly give allocation to them, because there's a point it will become a political agitation. By the time you give one geopolitical zone compared to the other one, I also say that no, you are giving less allocation. And even within that state, those 7 or 6 states together, one will also get more than the other. Why not cater to those states directly and give them allocation to solve their problem? It's better for me. But now you have created another bureaucratic bottleneck. There's what is called development commission. The other development commission, we have employment, we have allocation. We start be doing rationing and what have you. Why not give this money direct to state? For me, I don't agree with the issue of creation of a geopolitical zone, because we have Niger Delta. Niger Delta case is different. It's oil producing a community, and it is because we start for Northeast Commission. Why are you creating Northeast Commission? Why not get a fund and be giving them to solve their problem? Now the East said they need commission, the West said they need commission. Everybody is now having commission. I think it's misplacements of priority at this point in time. My own is that each state should get what they actually need. This state is suffering from erosion. Provide solution for them. This state have an emergency in this. Provide. Why will the money still go through the commission, from the commission down to the states? I think it is serious. We are in democracy, and we are in federal system of government. In federal system, you have to give each state that autonomy to actually achieve some aims. So not that you are now creating another bureaucratic bottleneck under the federal system. And I told you something that is another problem. By the time you now give much more to the northeast, northwest, and Eastern Commission will be thinking, and from there some other thinking will now be started. You are now empowering those development commission to be seeing themselves, and it may give room for secessionists. It may give room for them to see reason why we can even be on our own if we can achieve up to this level. So I think it's a wrong one at this point in time for me.
Well, quite an interesting thought. We'll revisit this conversation in the coming days, but we must thank you for taking our time to join the program this morning. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.